The real trick of it all is to try to get these pedals into some form of a chain where you can use the smallest number of auxiliaries, and they're all my green ones and my blue ones. I have 5 auxiliaries altogether. Auxiliary channels are channels that when the signal comes through, I can turn up this volume and it goes outside the desk and does something. And what it might do is go to one of these effects pedals. First of all, the bass signal is the most important to me. I have to find my bass. I unplugged everything. It looks like a dog's breakfast. It's a whole bunch of cables, and I need to make some sense out of them. I guess first things first, separate all of these cables. I take the shortest ones first. I might not need all of these short ones, but I might end up using a bunch of them throughout these small patches up here on the wall. I love these little tiny guitar pedals. They're super cute, and if you color code them, you can have a color code going a particular way. I like to use yellow at this point for the Big Muff, because I'm already using yellow with this bass graphic equalizer. And here's a yellow cable. Here's a microphone. It is very important that you plug in the left in A and the out in B, because if you're doing panning and things like that on the mixer, you might actually confuse yourself pretty badly if what goes in and what comes out ends up being switched. You might have phasing problems and all kinds of other problems too. So just make sure that when your in goes in A, that A is your left and B is your right. A is always going to be the left and mono, and B is always going to be right and the stereo channel. Alright, I'm not really sure what's happening here, so this is going out of the echo machine into the mixing desk. That means it's the dub siren. I need a really long cable. If I use a really long cable like this, I think I can power 10 different pedals at the same time. If you have problems with noise and buzz and hiss and things like that, maybe your pedals are old and maybe the connections aren't really fitting properly. Maybe the other cables that you're using going to your pedal are older or have connections that don't quite aren't quite solid. You can also have power cleaning filters that people use on their pedal banks. You can get these big long pedal bank power supplies with separate little plugs out or little sockets out for maybe 10 pedals, and they filter your power so you shouldn't have any surges and things. And I would recommend, if you do live music and you're going to different venues, definitely put surge guards or a surge guard electricity filter on all of your pedals, because you don't want to blow up any of your pedals during a gig, and who cares if their power blows up? You don't want to blow up your precious pedals. To power this up, alright, I have one cable. It's a very nice it's an old one. I've actually brought this one from Australia and I still use it to this day. I've had this transformer for 20 years. Alright, I just find the end of this, which is the socket. I got the socket end. Please focus. Well, anyway, it's the end that's not pointy. It's the end with a hole in it. Yeah, right. So anyway, that's the socket end, and then I just put my normal plug into here. And now that I've got this connection made, it might be smart to tape off the connection so later on I don't have any surprises in the studio that the power cuts out on my pedals and I don't know what happened. So you don't have to do this. This is just me being pedantic in the studio. But hey, if it's your studio, you have the right to be pedantic too. So I just take these two cables, and because it's the main power coming in, I want to secure this cable so it doesn't come undone at any point. Again, you don't have to do this, but I don't want to have surprises later on when the cat plays with the cable or the transformer gets bumped when I'm doing something under the desk. Alright, done. So that's just taped together really simply. It doesn't have to be too hardcore. So now I can put this white cable away. I don't want to see it. So now I have 10 plugs that I can plug in, and I can plug in all of my pedals with this one power supply. It's really a simple process, but it makes a bit of spaghetti. So the idea would be to thread this as one long line through the whole pedal collection until I come to an end. If I'm lucky, I might even have one or two spare pedals if I want to add things to it later. So I'll just start with the echo machine. I won't be able to see any signal in until something connects inside the socket. So I can see the power does work. That's not an issue. I'll take the next. Oh, and I'll try to hide these cables a little by pushing them behind the audio cable, because I don't want all of these wires like blooming or looming out towards me while I'm trying to do my stuff. I want to hide them behind the audio cable. Try and show you what I'm talking about. If I plug it in like that, everything's fine. Yet, if I pull that out, push this in behind, then I have a much neater surface and there are no cables coming out beyond the surface of the pedal. Is that pedantic? Probably. I don't know. Alright, so then this long cable needs to be woven all the way through. Might be easier to use it as a bunch. Alright, so now it goes to the compressor limiter. Again, you won't see any lights until there are cables plugged in. Then to my Big Muff Deluxe. Oh, look at that. It's lovely to see the lights come on without a plug being in it. Alright, and then the bass graphic no, actually I'll go down this way. The bass synth. It's just closer, and then I'm not going to stretch cables back and forth. Here I get to power the bass graphic equalizer, all the while trying to keep the cables tucked away or maybe even tucked a little bit behind the pedal. Here's the Boss DD7, very famous, very popular pedal. That's why I got it. I think it was 120 bucks or something like that. Oh no, sorry, the reverb. Oh. And the tuner is the last one. I just realized I plugged 10 things in. 10. Do I even have 10 pedals up here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, no, not even 9, 10. How did I do that? 6, 7, 8. Maybe it was 8. Maybe it wasn't 10. Well, because of that now, I have to use another bunch of connector plugs. And this one only has 3 on it. I really thought I would cover all of that with 10, but I think it's an 8 plug. So I just simply plug the end, the very, very last one, into the next connector, which is going to power 3 more pedals. And again, you know, you don't have to do this, but I want to use a little bit of tape, because any of these connectors that come undone are going to be a nightmare later. And again, it doesn't have to be too secure. It's not like storm preparation. It's only for you to keep tabs that you can be sure this is one thing you don't really have to worry about. You don't have to check on this after you've taped it up. Once you can see the connectors work, the proof is in the pudding. Lovely. Alright, now I have 2 left, which is pretty convenient, because one of those 2 things is this, the space echo, which is pretty damn important. It's not the central effect in my studio, that would be my reel-to-reel, but it's pretty damn close. So I can power that now. And I have 1 left over, just in case I want to use some other kind of effect. Who knows what? Distortion, this other crazy thing I came up with, which is an octave booster with a gate in the middle. You can use other pedals as well. And luckily now I have 1 extra power supply for 1 extra pedal, which could pop up at any point, or it could be an existing pedal that I already use. This is my basic setup. It's pretty straightforward. Now, I have to plug all of this into my desk. So far, I do have a signal that comes out of my desk, going to something where the bass is, somewhere. I have a signal coming out which will go to one of these delays. And the split signal also runs my tuner. So give me a couple of minutes and I have to plug these things together and show you that they all work in unison. So don't mind me, but you're going to be seeing my back for a second. Alright, so I think this cable here is going to be my split bass signal. I'll just double check. Oh, it's split, alright, okay. That's the one. I actually split the bass signal into 4 signals, but I used 3 of them, believe it or not. So from one bass synth out of my MPC 5000, I get 3 bass lines, and I put them in different places, and I blend them back together again. The first one, I'm sticking into the... That's the one. Bass graphic equalizer, and from there, with a short yellow cable, I go into the input, direct input of the Big Muff. I also have another bass signal here, so I can, look, that works too. Get another bass signal into this bass synth. I tuck away all my all my cables, sort of have as little surface area as possible. Now the bass synth has a bass signal going in, and the bass graphic EQ going to the Big Muff, going to the desk. I'll just test it. Yep. So you can see how I use that. It distorts like crazy. Alright, turn it on, soften it up. But check this out too, with the graphic EQ. Okay, so we can see we can see that the bass fuzz works. Pretty basic concept, and I think just to complete the idea of how the bass fuzz will work is I play the real bass line, which is a lot softer. I add some muff like this. Right, and if I want to, bit of spring reverb, and it's also fun to use distortion and delay together. So I'll just set up my delay on the desk. There's a simple tape delay on the desk, and the distortion can sound like this. Alright, so you see how that works. That's pretty straightforward. The bass synth is going to come out, and the bass synth is going to the compressor limiter. I only need a short cable for that. Because the bass synth is already red and the compressor is red, I'm going to use a red cable. Direct out A, direct out goes to direct in, and again pushing the cables back as much as possible. Let's see if the bass synth works. I'm curious. Alright, so we have the bass line. It should already be split, so there should already be a signal coming here. Let's see if that's a reality. Oh yeah, and we also have that to contend with. Alright. Oh, I hear it. It's just very soft. Probably because of the compressor. I'll put the compressor on everything on minimum. And the effect 50-50. I'll put everything at 12 o'clock because that's usually not a bad way to kind of test out to see if things are working. Everything's at 12 o'clock on the pedal. Let's see if there's a signal. A very little signal. I wonder why that is. Yeah, the bass synth is very quiet. Much quieter than it should be. I'll try to turn it up on the compressor. There it is. Alright, there it is. Whoa, that's loud. Alright, too loud. Okay. So I isolate the sound of the bass synthesizer when I really want to hear what it sounds like on its own. It's not that loud, but it could be louder. Not that loud at all. I'll have to work on that one to get the right levels. Yes, as I said before, there's another out coming from the bass synthesizer, and because it's a stereo, I only need a mono signal. I'll take another signal out of here and put that into the tuner. So hopefully you can see what's going on. I think you can already see what's going on. That's the cool thing about the tuner. Wait a second. Alright. The cool thing about the tuner is that it works as long as there's signal going into it, and the tuner doesn't need a signal going out of it. Alright. So the tuner itself is always going to have, it's going to tell you what notes are going into it no matter what they are. It's not going to pick up really complex, maybe piano chords or something, or strange minors, but it will read general notes really easily and really quickly. And because you don't need a signal out from here, this can be the last stop. But I think that if I pull out this little plug, it might stop working. No, it still works. Okay, that's pretty good. So having a tuner like this will help you when you're playing. So whenever you look over, you can tell what the notes are that you're playing. And if you're curious what these notes are, it's these bass notes. And like I said, it can always be on, so even if you're not getting a direct signal into your desk and playing the signal, you can still see when you look over what notes you should be playing if you're soloing, or if you're doing some kind of melodica or guitar or something and you're a little bit off. You can look up and just check what the notes are that are playing. The reverb unit and this power supply here. I need to test that out. I'll probably give you another video rundown, maybe next week, where I've plugged everything in properly, have everything accounted for, and I'll show you the rest of my studio effects. I have a couple of things on a rack down here, gates and a reverb effect. Also, I use the tape delay and a nice warm valve preamp unit for vocals. Like I said, I'm trying to reproduce that 70s sound, or even that 60s, 70s sound of analog equipment. So I use mostly pedals and analog equipment. My preamplifier has a valve, and when the valve gets nice and warm, the vocal tone sounds really great. And if you're recording melodica or anything else, it's going to sound really nice because it has the valve warming up that sound to give it that analog feel. Alright, I've got to figure out what to do with the rest of these cables. And while I'm doing that, I might have to make some more labels for things and put some stickers on things so I know what goes where. And I'll get back to you next week. I'll let you know what's going on inside Super Sound Studios. This is John Green for Global Reverb Dub Music channel. Subscribe down below.